Shanei Born and Alejandro Bratti from the Believe in Yourself, Believe in Your Business show. And we welcome you to the Spanglish World Network on Singo TV channel 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Singo TV app on iOS and Android devices. And while you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free, and Singo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, and Roku sticks, and all smart TV devices from 2016 forward. And today we welcome Diane. How are you, Diane?
I am feeling amazing. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent, thank you. How are you, Alejandro?
I am doing great, and I think that I am like in the middle here because I am here in Toronto, and Shanei, she is in the South Pole, almost freezing as I can see. so,
Yeah.
so this is great, and really, we are really grateful that you are here, Diane, here with us today. I know that this is going to be an amazing show. So we are going to start first listening. What are you doing now? And then we are going to go backwards to know a little bit more about your story. So tell us a
Sure.
little bit. What are you doing?
Right now, I am offering online courses. I don't actually, I call them adventures. I offer online adventures to families and teams, and it's called the Wild Alphabet Adventure. And the whole idea is to practice learning, unlearning, and relearning so that that can be your model of learning for life. And the focus of the practice is actually the letters of the alphabet, because it's something we all think we know. And when you find out that you don't know it as well as you think you do, and then you go into this adventure to create a model of every letter for yourself, and literally out of clay, and then master and really learn it in a new way, it changes everything.
Yeah. That sounds really exciting.
So that's why for me, I was telling you this is very interesting today because Diane discover how to do this, and now we are going to learn how was that process and where is she coming. So Diane, let's go back now to your life to understand. Even I don't know if you want to share before you were a tax
Sure.
expert, or even before, but just to understand who is Diane, where are you coming from, who you were before you believe in yourself, and how you started to realize all the things that you are doing now.
Well, what's really interesting is my passion for education and being involved in educational reform for more than 20 years was not something I ever anticipated. As you mentioned, I began as a tax lawyer, and thought that that was the best thing that I could be doing. But my children changed my direction and my focus. But even before that, I I was never really a big fan of educational systems the way they traditionally are. Even though I fortunately had natural ability to play the school game really well. And in fact, I graduated from high school with the top marks in my class. I went off to University of Toronto with a scholarship. I got into law school very quickly, and I was called to the bar when I was 24. And everybody would look and think, wow, that's a great success story. Look at you go. But I hated it. I actually didn't. I didn't enjoy school. I didn't really fit in, because I just saw there's a purpose here. We have to do what they want us to do. And and there was a big disconnect with who I thought I was and what I had to be every day to play this game of school. And I thought, but this is the way it is, and so this is what I do. Um, and and deciding to become a tax lawyer because I realized, um, I it was intellectually stimulating and it was kind of fun. But once I started having children and took an extended maternity leave, and spent some time volunteering in classrooms, I realized something really needs to be done about education. If we want to solve the challenges we have with the environment, with social injustice, with animal cruelty, like all the things that we each have particular interests in, it begins at the very earliest days. And I started trying to understand what is really the purpose of education. And to me, the purpose of education is to find out what makes you come alive, and then provide all the tools and experiences you require to fully express that. And there's a quote that I really love from Howard Thurman, who was a civil rights leader and activist in the United States. And he said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is more people who have come alive." And I thought, that means a lot to me. I really like that. And so when my children were young, I started applying kind of my in-depth way of looking at things, and try to understand where the best place would be to begin in reforming education. And I saw a lot of people struggling with literacy, and that the families were struggling, the parents were feeling challenged, the teachers were overwhelmed, and the children were feeling less than they really are. And it was breaking my heart. And so I started looking into how we could do that. And I just have to say, this is the time in my life when I actually felt alive. Like, being a tax lawyer, I did not feel alive. I
How
felt
many years you were in tax lawyer as a tax lawyer?
about 5 years. And then I started having kids and realized that I wanted to stay home with them.
And what was the age of your kids that where you started to to think about this?
Well, it was really my eldest son, who now is 35, so it's been a while. But when he was 10 years old, he just stopped cooperating in school, and I was getting calls from the principal, and they were saying he's not doing what he's asked. And I asked him what the problem was, and his response was, "They're not nice, and what they're asking me to do is stupid." And I thought, can't really go to the principal with that response. But I also said, I totally get it. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, and in his perspective, they weren't nice. And for a number of reasons. But I also discovered that he had certain gaps. We had him tested. His IQ was above the 99th percentile, like what they call dangerously gifted. But there were some gaps that he had, and particularly with respect to literacy, where he had messy writing and poor spelling. And I thought, he was a voracious reader, but there was something there. And I started looking into solutions for that. And so I came upon a man named Ron Davis, who had written a book in the 90s called The Gift of Dyslexia. And he was talking about dyslexia in a much broader way than many people do. It was basically, if any challenges you have with respect to reading and writing are causing a problem for you, then that is dyslexia. And some people just say, well, no, dyslexia means you really can't read, or it's much deeper than that. But he took this very broad approach, and I decided to go and experience their first level of training for people to give a good foundation for literacy. And this was in 1999. So it took me a couple of years to kind of figure out, what am I going to do? And I saw that this is what I wanted to do. And so I went to this workshop, and there were 35 seasoned educators and me. And we had to introduce ourselves. And so I stood up and I said, well, I'm Diane Devenyi. I'm a tax lawyer. I'm a mother of 3. And I'm here to revamp education on the planet. And then I sat down. And I thought, what did I just say? And I thought, who talks about the planet? It was 1999. like we didn't have the same reach we do now. And I thought, what on earth does that even look like? But the only thing I knew was that it was true. I could feel the truth of that statement. And that has kept me going for the 22 years since that moment, um, despite all the ups and downs. And so I decided to fully train in this program that was a 30-hour one-to-one program. So I would work one-to-one for an entire week with an individual who identified as having dyslexia, and the results were remarkable. Um, and sometimes occupational therapists or other people who were involved would see results happening and wonder what happened, like how did this work. And so I knew it was really powerful, but I also knew I was here to revamp education on the planet, so I had to apply what I was doing in a broader scale. And I spoke to Ron during one of the workshops, and I said, I'm here, I love what you're doing, and I'm here to bring this and really make it scalable in education. And he said, go for it. Whatever you
Let,
can.
let me interrupt you quickly, Diane, because I want to go back to this and do it very full. But in regards of your kid, when he was 10 years old, he tells you that. Why do you think you started to believe in him and say like, okay, I am going to do something about this? And not saying like a normal parent that can say like, this
Suck
is
it
just
up. Yeah.
maybe a teenager that is coming and I don't care. It's a pre-teenager and maybe it's just because some of the mood. What was the process inside of you saying like, no, there is something behind that I have to help, and I have the ability to do it even when you didn't know all these other things that you are telling us.
Um, well, I would say there were two things. One is because I knew he was really bright, and I thought there's something wrong with the system that is not engaging this child. But also from my own personal experience, I never felt fully that I fit in. And in fact, when I was 9 years old, I was starting grade 4, and they didn't know what to do with me, because in grade 3 I had completed the grade 3 spelling program, or grade 6 spelling program, and the grade 6 math program, and they didn't know what to do with me. So they decided to put me out in the hall and give me books the year ahead for so-called independent study. And I remember thinking, oh, so they don't want to know what my best is. They want me to be the best at what they're asking us to do. And I knew, even at 9 years old, that there was a difference between my best and what was good for them. And so I decided I'm only going to be the best at what they're asking. I'm not going to explore who I really am, who I really can be, what I can do. And I also knew that shutting down my creativity was an important part of that goal. That I knew if I was going to be creative, that was going to interfere. So I really became very rigid, and I lived in my head. And so I'm quite sure that when my son was, showing similar,
Activated that inside of you.
yeah, it was just like, oh my gosh, this is why I'm here. And what was really interesting is I started attending different educational conferences, and eventually I went back to school to get a master's degree in education. But it was interesting when I could go to an educational conference and I see the keynote speakers and I think, wow, I really want to meet them and talk with them. So I'd walk up to them and I'd say, I'm a tax lawyer and I've been involved in educational reform for 5 or 7 or however many years at that point, and I'd really like to talk with you. And they say, oh, sure, here's my card, or contact my secretary or whoever it was, as opposed to going and saying, I'm an angry mother and I want to see things better for all children. And
Yeah.
because, like, even though being a lawyer has nothing to do with understanding learning or education, but it gives you credibility of some level so that people are going to pay attention to you. And I thought, gosh, that's brilliant universal plan to have me achieve something that people could consider admirable, as I decide to go and start talking to people about ideas. So yeah, so it like as I look back, I think, whoever's in charge, that was a good plan.
That's really good. And going back to that conversation with Ron, what do you think? Because I know that you started to say like you are here to change the education in the world, but what do you think brought you that idea to your head? Like, because you can be thinking, I can change the education here in Toronto, and that's okay, and that's fine, and that's perfect, and that is a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it was not my intention at all. I didn't even know I was going to say those words. Like I just stood up and I started to speak, and something spoke for me, and so when you find that something that rings true for you, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, and it's not always fun, but it's worth it, because there have been many times I've had setbacks. I started doing pilot projects in Toronto schools, and sometimes they would change the administration in the school mid-year. Someone would be promoted to a principal in a new school, somebody new would show up, and I'd been in one school for almost 2 years, and I was in 12 classrooms a week, and we were having really great results. And a new principal showed up in March, so just a few months before the end of the year, and said, "Yeah, I don't think we need you here anymore." I say, "What?" And so I'd go home, I'd lie on my bed for 30 minutes, feeling sorry for myself and thinking, "Okay, like I'm doing this because this is what I'm here to do, and I can't keep feeling sorry for myself. Something else is going to open up, and I just have to keep going." But yeah, it's when you realize this is why I'm here. This is who I am. Don't ever give up on that. Just it's
Yeah.
not easy. It's not easy. And I just have to say, it was really funny because when I made that statement, um, one woman came up to me and she said, "You're the only one here I'm interested in." And she said, "That's amazing. That's like a 20-year project." And I remember thinking, I'm not going to spend 20 years on this. And 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 naively, and 5 years in, I can recall, as I had been in these classrooms, I was doing all these things, and I can recall thinking, "Oh my gosh, maybe this is a 20-year project." And 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 um, and then the interesting thing was, um, in 2020, so 20 years later, my first grandchild was born to that same son. Um, and
Wow.
I was working on some things, and I was being frustrated because I was trying to get someone to help me illustrate this journal, the success guide that I created for part of my course. And I swear that little guy spoke to me and he said, "Grandma, you promise that if I come here, you are going to," because, oh, yeah. So the story was, I was thinking, my kids aren't going to benefit from this, but my grandchildren will. And so that just kept me going. My grandchildren are going to benefit from what I'm doing. And so he said, "You promised that if I come, that you're going to take care of this, and so get on with it." And so then I sat down and I literally took a pen and I started doing all the sketches, and I added a parent journal and a child's journal, each with 21 days. I had 42 drawings. I just sat down and did them. And I've never drawn anything before. But I just feel like sometimes just these things just push you along that
Mhm.
you can't anticipate. You don't know where it's coming from. But as long as you keep going and putting that one step forward, synchronicities and opportunities continue to open up.
And quick question: what you have behind you is something of that, or
No, that's just, I actually had a young artist that a friend of mine knew his mom, and he needed a place to stay in Toronto for a short time, and this was his payment. He's he
Wow.
made this beautiful painting. Yeah. um, yeah. So, but so it, along the way, I have had various people support me, including a former premier of our province who I got to know really well because her passion was education. And in 2005, she said, "Hey, have you thought about getting a degree in education?" And I said, "Well, I looked into it and I'm not interested in a bachelor's degree, which here just leads to teaching in a classroom." And I
Mm.
said, graduate school, they say you need a 4-year honors degree in something. And I went for 2 years to university and then did a 3-year law degree. And so I wasn't sure. And she said, "I'm pretty sure a law degree will qualify." And so she wrote me a reference letter and with principals and trustees I'd been working with, and off I went. And again, wow, was that ever exciting. It was truly the best experience of education I've ever had. Just being able to do when you're doing what is in your heart, and when you're really following your passion, you just, there's not enough learning that you can do. And and even I misunderstood what my courses were worth. And I remember meeting towards the end with my academic advisor, and she was saying, "Oh, so what are your plans for graduation?" Da da da. And I said, "Oh, well, I've got this and this and this and this and this course I'm still going to do, and then I'll be ready." And she said, "No, no, this is your last term of coursework. You've already done the required number of courses." And I thought, no. And so I actually stayed on another term while I was doing my research project, taking more courses because I couldn't stop. And so that's when you know you're in the right place.
Mm.
And so, yeah, but then the other thing that started happening is, um, because I was applying everything to myself, and even when I took the program with Ron Davis, and one of the things that we do is make an alphabet, and both the capital and the small letters, or uppercase and lowercase, out of clay. And when I experienced holding these letters in my hands and activating my imagination to integrate them in a visceral way into my body, everything changed. Like, I could feel comprehension in my body in a way that I never had before. And then I jokingly started saying I was a recovering lawyer, recovering from living in here and suddenly having a complete experience of what learning feels like in your entire body. But the other thing that happened is I started out of the blue writing spoken word poetry, which I wasn't something that was again on my radar at all. But I would be woken up sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes at 5 o'clock in the morning, and just be, I feel I had to go to my computer and I'd start typing, and I would have these words in front of me. The first one was just at the end of my master's program, and I called it Education 3.0, and it's a vision for that I still hold for the future of education, of all that can happen. Um, and and so, I mean, if you're interested, I could even share
I I
one or
want
two.
to. What I would love to know is if there is a way we can do something here live, if you want to, with Shanei or with me, with any of, just to understand what is exactly what are you talking about, because I find this really interesting, uh,
Mm.
understanding all these things. And there is something that I know. I was a person that always was in my mind, and I have been working a lot to move to my body also, like you are saying. uh, and it's something that sometimes when you are an engineer, or you are a lawyer, or you are like, you have to have everything in your head, and that's the only thing that is important. It doesn't matter your heart. You have to understand that right now you have to push it away because it's not going to help you to take all the decision that you have to take. But what you are talking is, okay, I am helping people right now with coaching and other stuff to really connect with their hearts, but you are talking something completely different. It's using language to connect with your heart, so, and start to live with that. So that's a perspective completely different. So for me it's curiosity how to do
Well,
that.
the first, I mean, the process is very hands-on, and so really, like, I'll just, for example, I'll just pick up a letter I was just working. I don't know if it's reversed for you because my camera's reversed, but this is a lowercase y, and putting it in your hands and feeling it and sending the picture. But I also, I don't know if I could, I don't know how to change my camera setting, but there's an entire alphabet.
Yeah, I
That's
see that.
cool.
But when we do lowercase, we start with Z or Z, depending on where in the world you are. But before we do all of that, it's understanding any places where there is a lack of certainty for order. And so if you're interested, but you'd have to have a piece of paper and a pen handy. I don't know if you have that. I mean, ideally lined paper, just so you can be in more control of it that way.
I found this. Okay, I will take
Okay.
out.
And so as long as I'll be able to see it, I guess it would have
Or
been
the
a good,
other thing is I can use the whiteboard there.
but that might be hard for you to do it accurately. Like it's really,
Okay.
yeah, like it might be hard. But if you are able to point your camera towards it when you're done, I don't know if you can do that.
Okay, I
But for
can
each of
do.
you, so what you're going to do, do you have something, Shanei?
Um, just give me a second. I'll get something now. Just give me a second.
Okay.
So you want to see when I am writing, or
What I want to see is I want you to print out the uppercase letters first from A to Z and just go across the line and then move on to the next line as you need it.
Okay.
And this is what I call the most misunderstood and underappreciated aspect of literacy, that people don't realize the importance of absolute certainty. And each person is unique in how important certainty is to them and how it affects them and how distracting it can be. But I found, and and I had pretty nice penmanship because my mom is of that generation that had really beautiful penmanship. That was a big part of their education, and I did my best to copy hers. And then when you're finished the uppercase, now start a new line and do lowercase from A to Z. But I'm going to need to see it, and so once you're finished, so you might hold it up and I can look at it, or um,
okay, let me put it in front of
okay,
you.
and next, you draw a picture of something. Let me see if I can. I have to get really close to see it. Okay. Okay, so I'll be able to have a look at those and we can talk about them.
Okay.
Although you're showing it up, I don't know if you can see yours. If you can see it on your camera when you hold it up so that I can see it.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so draw a picture of something and then write something about your picture.
I, I I don't consider myself a good painter, but
I'm not looking for Rembrandt. But I'll explain to you what each component does of this little assessment. There are a lot of school districts around the world that are trying to figure out how to support students who are struggling with literacy. And one of the biggest challenges is that the assessments are very deep and intense and expensive. And I know in my province, when there's a child who identifies as having an issue, they won't even consider doing an assessment until they're in grade 3 or 8 years old. And even then, they just get on a waiting list. And
Oh, wow.
And so many years pass where the child continues to feel that they're falling further and further behind. This assessment I'm showing you can change all of that. And that's I'm hoping that by the end of next month, I will have my first book in a series I've been writing, and it's called Dear Genius, Harness the Hidden Power in Your ABCs. And it's talking about this whole assessment process and how this, what I call disorder in one's alphabet, a lack of order. It's not a disorder in the person. It's a lack of order in what you create when you're asked to produce writing, is a major cause of many literacy issues. It's a major root cause of many literacy issues. And so if we can have a look at what you've got, and you notice that I've been talking so that you're kind of distracted and things like that. Okay, so we'll start with Alejandro, and I had to get really close, so it's going to look kind of funny on my camera. Maybe I don't know what I should do. Maybe I can close my camera for a moment, just so it's not looking there. Okay. So what I'm looking for are certain things. The uppercase letters, every single one of them is the same height. You know, they occupy the same space in the line. And I look for, where did the person start relative to the line? And we see that the A is really almost a little below, like it's very connected to the line. And every letter should be the same height and the same connection. It's not uncommon for letters to kind of ride up and down a little bit. Just as we see a slight thing happening with Alejandro's, his letters are generally the same height. But if you were really to put each one beside each other, they're not perfectly the same height. And you might think, so what's the big deal? It matters for some people more than others, but it's always a distraction because our brains are always looking for patterns. We're always looking to see how what is in front of us can be predictable so that we can feel safe. And so if something becomes unpredictable, and like Alejandro's got perfectly wonderful printing, like I don't criticize it at all, but I'm being really picky right now and just saying these are places where if he were to do his own alphabet and make one out of clay, he will find that what he produces with his hand would change, and have a certainty around it. And my first experience was in 1999, and still every time I write something, I think about the fact that I know exactly what I want them to look like. And there's something empowering about that until you experience it, you can't really know. And then we look at his lowercase, and again, generally well-formed, but see the circle on the A and the B and the C and the D, those are all pretty common. The E fits in quite well, but something has happened with his G, his P, and his Q, that they are much smaller, even though they're supposed to be the same. And then his R is as tall, like is bigger than his S, almost as tall as his T. The U and V, again, are for some reason above the line. And it's really interesting because you can go into this and connect into emotional triggers that show up in your letters. And this isn't the same as a handwriting analysis. You know, they have another way of looking at it. But that's really what I would say. The purpose of the drawing, and look at that magnificent lion and drawing, is to make sure that if somebody were to have a real issue with forming letters so that they're accurate in size and shape and things, or what I call condition, many people spend hours with occupational therapy trying to correct the messy writing. And in fact, it's more just a lack of, it's an incomplete education in the letters. It's not a fine motor skill issue for the vast majority of people who struggle with dysgraphia or messy writing. And so the drawing will, and sometimes someone will have real issues with dysgraphia, but they are a phenomenal artist. And so it's not a fine motor skill issue. There's also the classic story of doctors with messy writing. And
Yeah.
if you're a surgeon and you've got messy writing, your messy writing is not a fine motor skill issue. And also people question, well, if somebody can't write neatly, maybe there's something about their brain and they're less intelligent than other people. Totally not true. But it's also interesting. I look to see, and maybe Alejandro's thinking, okay, I'm going to just write something quickly, but it's also interesting to see how much somebody wants to write. Like some people will write a lot and some people will put literally one or two words. And so it's just like, how do you feel about writing? So it's just getting this snapshot that if every teacher could learn how to do this with their classrooms and make sure that every single student has complete certainty of the letters, so many things would change. And so that's where we are with that. Do you have any questions, Alejandro?
With the wording, or I don't know if there is something that means the way I did the graph, the drawing.
Well, the only thing is, I'd like to show that you have good control, but we already know from your letters that you have good control of the pen or pencil.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really what it is. But it's also just how comfortable are you expressing yourself creatively? And you did quite an extensive drawing, like you put a lot of details into it. And so it's just saying looking at this, you are comfortable. I can get back on my camera for a sec. You are comfortable expressing yourself. You're confident, with your reading and writing, and you've got your own style that you've adapted for your own personal writing purposes. And so, but if you wanted to unlearn what you have and relearn something else to give your brain and body an experience of what that means to unlearn and relearn, then that's when you would have this adventure into the wild alphabet.
And what are the things that you start to learn? Okay, I can say like I feel okay, I'm fine, but I am looking to improve in other areas of my life. Why I would like to unlearn the alphabet and learn it again?
That's a great question. The fact is, this transfers to any part of your life, and it becomes a process for learning and unlearning. Like the various things that we do in our journey is we look at our energy level and we start visualizing and predicting success for ourselves and matching our energy level, which is, athletes have been doing that for a long time. And so so it's just using your ability to have a growth mindset towards learning, and have a specific process for staying focused, making sure in your body that your everything is working in your favor. And so I actually decided to try something I'd been afraid to do my whole life. And so in 2004, I went for my first dance lesson. And 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 I'd always been afraid of dancing. I love to sing. I've been a musician my whole life, but
That's so
dancing scared me.
That
And
thing at the shower, no?
Well, yeah, I mean, one of my brothers was a high school music instructor specializing in choral work. So I always joke that my sisters and I were his first students. That he taught us to sing in harmony and all kinds of things, but dancing. And so I showed up at this studio, which was really crazy because I'd been wanting to go, and I had a friend who was visiting me and said, "When are you going to start dancing?" I said, "You know what? I should sign up for lessons." And the phone rang, and it was a local dance studio offering 2 free lessons. And I put down the phone. I said, "You are not going to believe," this was in the day when we had phones in our house, "but you are not going to believe who just called." I said, "It was this dance studio offering me 2 free lessons." So I showed up, and there was Carlos, the studio owner, and I said, "I want to learn to dance salsa." He said, "Oh, no, you don't." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You want to learn every dance because you never want to have to sit down if it's the wrong music." I went, "Oh my gosh, you know me." And so he said, "And in 3 months, we're having a student showcase. So why don't you learn 7 styles of dance so you can do 7 routines in our student showcase?" I thought, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And
sounds like a lot.
I threw myself into it, but I was applying all my techniques and I for different styles of dance I had different instructors, and they would show me something and I would stand there and I'd close my eyes and I'd see myself doing it, and I would set my energy level. They go, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm just seeing myself do what you just showed me." And so in 3 months I was ready to dance 7 routines. And the most exciting one was the salsa one with this amazing Venezuelan dancer Alex, and he taught me all these dips and tricks and all this great stuff. And and so but that was my last one of the whole night. And as the music was starting, I looked at him and I went, my brain is blank. I have no idea what to do. I said, "I think 7 routines was too much." And so he said, "Don't worry, we'll just dance and have fun." And that's what we did. But it like, you can apply it to any part of your life. You can apply it to being more comfortable as a presenter, as a speaker, or you can apply it to any kind of assessments or tests you have to do. Um, and uh, and 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 basically anything we want to do in our life, if we have a certain mindset and a certain process, we are more likely to have success. So I don't want to miss out on the other assessment. Are we going to do yours next?
Shanei?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to blank out so I can come in close.
There we go. Can you see that nicely?
Yes. Okay. So as I was saying, so you've started with your A off the line, and you were pretty consistent, although your I and J kind of went down to the line. Um, and as you can see, they're not totally the same size, every single letter. Like the D is much smaller, and look at the size of the G, for example. Your J is probably one of the biggest letters. And then you kind of start flying a little higher, and um, your R is an atypical R. Your um, your uppercase Y is just a big version of your lowercase y. It's not what most fonts would have as a y. And so again, absolutely nothing to say negative about this, because clearly you can write or print very neatly, and but you don't know until you unlearn this and relearn this what it may do for you, and how it may open things up for you. And again, the like, look at the difference in size of the round part of your A and B and your D, and your P and your Q are slightly different, and so those little things, they are going on in the background in your mind all the time, and you may have learned to just ignore them or quiet them, but
Yeah.
once you have a real sense of certainty about it, and watch what happens with your hand when it actually is producing what your new letters are, it just creates something in people that I can't predict. I just know everybody has something awesome happen to them. Some people say that people are starting to listen to them in ways they never did before, or they're coming up with the words that they were struggling to find previously. And not to mention those who just feel like, wow, I love my writing now. I love my printing now. But just having certainty. And of course, in the interest of space, you did a beautiful little flower drawing, which shows, which we already knew, you have extremely great motor control, um, and your little statement um, is cute, and so again, this is somebody who would look, okay, you can take it down, thanks. This is somebody who would look and say, I'm perfectly happy with what I've got, but we're talking about high performance now. We're talking about high performance living, learning, functioning, and taking something to this higher level. It's just like when I was learning to dance. It's one thing to learn how to dance and go and do social dancing. It's another to decide that you're going to perform, because
Yeah.
take everything to another level. Like you dig in deeper into yourself and expect more of yourself, and walk away saying, this is the, like, I just experienced the best I can be, and feeling the pride of doing that. And so that's what this process does. It gives you an opportunity to level up a connection to these letters that you've always taken for granted. But you can decide, well, it's all good. It's all fine for me. It's not affecting me. And that probably true. But if you really want to take yourself to another place, then that's why I have certain adults doing it. But what's really interesting is my family programs, that parents are required to do exactly the same thing that their children are doing, except the children are in charge of the celebration plan, because every time they reach a milestone, they get to choose what the celebration is going to be, and they're the ones who make sure that the celebration happens. But otherwise, the parents are going through the same thing. And my current cohort, we've been meeting on Saturdays for weekly live support of the online trainings, and it was time for, now that everyone's done their uppercase, to present to everybody a very slow alphabet from A to Z, and then from Z to A. And even the parents, like, you see the look on their face when they have successfully shared their ability to know the alphabet from Z to A. And we did a lot of rehearsal and connecting, and so that each person goes through and shares, and everyone else rehearses while the others are sharing. But it's a real high when you can do something like that. And especially for people who wish their spelling could come more easily to them. Um, I say to them, you have just mastered a 26 letter word. Unfortunately, English, the traditional phonics rules only work 47% of the time. The rest you just have to learn. But it's never going to be this hard again. If you can do 26 letters, you can do everything else. Although I had one little girl say, "But what about supercalifragilisticexpialidocious?" And so I looked it up, and it's actually I think 34 letters. And I said, "Well, go for it. If you want to do that one, go for it." But yeah, it's just there's all these little pieces, and we don't realize what distractions are doing. And so there are often people that I meet who talk about having issues with attention and trying to sort that out. And I'll always say to them, I'll do an assessment and I'll say, I can see here certain gaps or certain lack of order. And I recommend that you resolve that and then talk about attention, because part of the process is we have focusing tools that we use, but you're also quieting that chatter that could be going on in the back of your mind all the time as you're trying to make sense of what you're looking at.
Quick, because we are at the end of the show already. So I have just two quick questions. One is, when you are working with children, what are the ages that you recommend to start with? Not approximately. And the other one is how people can connect with you if they have some questions, or they are interested on this.
Well, thank you for that. So the children, I have worked with children as young as 4 when I was in the schools, because they're expecting here 4-year-olds to start learning their letters. I Unless you have a child that really wants to do it, I wouldn't do anything at 4 years old. But certainly by 6, if there is going to be some problem, you're going to know by the time they're 6. And so I if and that's the ones who are looking to do remediation, make sure that they have a solid foundation. The other is parents who want their child to have everything they could possibly have. And again, if you have a child who's 5 or 6 who really loves reading and wants to do this, and you want to level up their abilities, then do it. But realize you're going to do it too. Like, the parents are
No,
going to do it.
I have a 4 years old that he's already learning all the alphabet, and because he wanted, not because he's.
Exactly. So when you have that, then if that's their interest, I guarantee you making an alphabet out of clay will be the most fun thing they've ever done with letters. Like there are, I know in Montessori schools, they have sandpaper letters, and they do a certain thing, but it's not the same as making your own letters out of clay. But a 4-year-old who's interested, absolutely. A 6-year-old who's not, I would give them a chance to have some motivation, because if it doesn't matter to them, then don't let it matter to you. But if it does matter to them, then you have something you can do about it. How to get in touch with me? We're just switching our website, but it is going to be thelearningforce.com, hopefully by the end of this week. And so that would be a place to check out what is happening in our adventures, and also, but if you want right now, yeah, like if for some reason that's not working, then there is emboldeneducation.com, which is kind of confusing. but it's MBOLDN because I have the M and N, which are the center of the alphabet, and split it in half and put bold right in the middle. And so that's how you can think about it, like MBoldN education.com. If you write to support at emboldeneducation.com, then you can find out more about what we're doing. You can get on the pre-order list for the book that will be coming out soon. And also, if you're interested in what we just demonstrated with the assessments, if anyone's interested in that, I put together what I call assessathons, where people submit things and then we go over them together. And so if people are interested in that, they could do that as well.
So Diane, it was amazing. Thank you for today. It was a mix between your story, a mix between what you are doing, a mix between everything. So thank you. It was amazing, and thank you all. Thank you, Shanei, again being here with us. So thank you everyone to listening to us. This show can also be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out SpanglishWorld.ca for all the news and programming. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and leave it. Thank you all. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.